Good evening. Welcome to the Coffeyville City Commission meeting for Tuesday, June 25th, 2019. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Kevin O'Connor of AGAP Fellowship. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for the time that we have to come here and discuss the business of the city and institute new officers in here. Father, we pray that everything done here would be for your glory and help us as we make decisions. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. Thank
You're
you, sir.
welcome. Thank you.
Tonight's consent agenda. Item number 1, City Commission meeting minutes for Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. Number 2, 2019 appropriation ordinance number AO-19-12 in the amount of $4,390,592.98. Are there any questions or amendments to these first two items on the consent agenda?
I have none.
With none, I'd move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Taylor and seconded by Mayor Bauer to approve the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Van Oster.
Aye.
Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
2019 appropriation ordinance number AO-19-12A, Ishams, in the amount of $223.32. Questions or comments or amendments to this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Who seconded?
Paul.
Motion was made by Commissioner Williams and seconded by Mayor Bauer to approve appropriation ordinance number AO-19-12A for adoption. Mayor Bauer.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Doan.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Oster.
Abstain.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye. We have a relatively short agenda tonight, so the first thing that's on the agenda is going to be the swearing in of police officers Terrence Gaston and Tyler Shelton. If you can come up front, please. Let me stand right up here. Go ahead. So, raise your right hand. Wrongly. Repeat after me. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or my public trust. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Kansas, my community, and the agency I serve. Very good. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. You guys do anything? say, well, you welcome to step up to the podium and say something.
Come on. No pressure.
Is that all with that?
We're going to be doing another presentation for the Coffee Police Department next.
Okay.
So next up on the agenda is the AAA Silver Award presentation of the Coffeyville Police Department. Sean Stewart, the AAA Kansas, will present an award to Quinn Bromley and the Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Like you said, I'm Sean Stewart with AAA Kansas, and it's a pleasure to be here again this year to present the 2018 AAA Kansas Traffic Safety Award. This award is presented annually to encourage communities to address local traffic safety issues in a coordinated and cost-effective way. Only 30 police departments across the state of Kansas will receive the award this year. Coffeyville PD is recognized for a variety of programs and initiatives, including having a department-wide policy requiring the use of seat belts, participating in National Night Out to foster positive relationships with the community and provide education on traffic safety, conducting traffic lane stops focusing on identifying alcohol and drug-impaired drivers, and participating in efforts to enforce seatbelt usage laws. These and other efforts have produced positive traffic safety results, including over the last 5 years, teen seatbelt use increased from 70% to 86%. In that same period, child passenger safety seat use rose from 75% to 90%. Alcohol-related crashes fell from 13 in 2015 to only 7 in 2017. Today, Coffeyville PD is receiving a Silver Award for demonstrating strong, sustained efforts in addressing local traffic safety issues. First of all, great police departments don't happen without the support of government leadership, so I commend and thank all of you for your support of Chief Bromley and his team. And I wanted to also recognize Troy Wells, who's with Kansas Department of Transportation. He's a law enforcement liaison and works with agencies all over the state to identify deserving ones and helping them to apply for these awards. So thank you very much for your help, Troy. And without further ado, I wanted to present Chief Bromley and the Coffeyville PD with the 2018 AAA Kansas Community Traffic Safety Award. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
So
time.
AAA, tell us, we've got a really short meeting tonight. Sean, the AAA is what? So the people know?
Yeah, AAA, formerly known as the American Automobile Association.
Right.
So we're known for our roadside assistance. We're also an insurance company, travel agent services. We're basically an advocate for travelers. and
Well, I
that's-
thought that was the same AAA.
Yes, sir.
So why are you giving this award?
Well, it's just traffic safety. We're an advocate for motorists. That's our main and original reason for being, and we've been around since 1902 as an organization. So we want our members and all motorists to be safe. So, you know, traffic safety enforcement and efforts like those that your police department is involved in are very important to us. So we want to recognize them for the great work.
So you like doing stuff like this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we like for the police departments to be recognized in front of their bosses. So
Where are you from, Sean?
I'm in the Wichita area.
Sean and Troy both?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate you driving all the way over here for this and
Very much so.
everything, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Next item on the agenda, 2018 audit report. Neil Phillips, Jarrett Gilmore, and Phillips will present the 2018 audit.
Good evening.
Good
Everybody
evening.
got their copies of the audit?
Do.
Yes.
All right, let's skip past the letters that are in there and dive straight into the audit report. Page 1, 2, and 3 is the independent auditor's report. The first paragraph talking about what we audited, being the city of Coffeyville as of December 31st, 2018. The second paragraph talks about management's responsibilities and the fact that every number in this document is yours. They're your numbers, your representations with what happened during the year and how you ended the year. The next 3 paragraphs talks about what the auditor's responsibilities are and the fact that we audit following auditing standards that are generally accepted in the United States of America. Then we also follow what they call the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. So we actually have 2 layers of testing that we do when we come in to do your audit. The very bottom of that page, we talk about the basis for an adverse opinion, and that continues on the next page. In the state of Kansas, we're allowed to not follow GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. We are allowed to follow what they call the Kansas Regulatory Basis of Accounting. A lot of people refer to it as the Kansas Cash Basis and Budget Laws. It means you can't spend the money if you don't have it in the fund, and you can't spend the money if you don't have public approval. That's through the budget process. And then like individual capital projects, that's where you get your public approvals when they come to you to get that specific project authorized. That's a lot of times why you'll see like a construction guy will come back and he'll bring a $1,500 change order to you because he knows he cannot get paid that by law unless he gets that change order approved, because it's got to have that public approval. So Kansas financial statements are a very safe basis of accounting, and actually in open market Kansas bonds a lot of times will sell before other states just because of that basis of accounting. Second paragraph down on page 2 says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the aggregate cash and unencumbered cash balance of the city of Coffeyville as of December 31st, 2018, and the aggregate receipts and expenditures for the year then ended in accordance with the financial reporting provisions of the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide described in Note 1. So what you have there is what they call an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. And what that means to you is based on the testing that we did as part of the audit, all the different various procedures that we performed, we feel like the numbers are a materially accurate representation of what happened during the year and how you ended the year. The next couple paragraphs talk about the supplemental information and our responsibility with it. So if we turn to page 4 and 5, page 4 and 5 is where we spend the majority of our time. Statement number 1 shows users at a glance that we're in compliance with the cash basis laws of Kansas. That's why these statements actually follow the KMAG. And each statement has a purpose when it's out there. This is to show users we're in compliance with the cash basis laws. You look at the 5th column over there, ending unencumbered cash. As you glance down through there, if any of those were negative, that would be a violation of Kansas cash basis laws, meaning you spent...
I'm sorry, where are you now again?
I'm on page 4 and 5.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, I got the page, I got it.
Yep, and the 5th column over, ending unencumbered cash.
I got you.
If any of those were negative, that would be a violation of Kansas statute. In your case, you can glance down through there and see that we did end the year with positives. I also like this statement because it's a snapshot of by fund. Like the general fund, we started the year out with $1.6 million of unencumbered cash. A lot of people refer to that as carryover or your reserves. You know, when you're doing your budgeting process, we talk about cash carryover a lot. You started the year out with $1.6 million, brought in $11,866,000, spent $11,644,000, so ended the year with $1.8 million in our general fund. The next section is what they call special purpose funds. And those funds, everybody looks at our bottom line to say, hey, we have $43 million in the bank. Why are we not paying off debt? Why are we not doing this with the city? Or are we doing that with the city? Well, those special purpose funds, they titled them that way so that everybody understands those are for a specific purpose. Can't just spend them on anything. Most of the time, it's tax monies or monies that have been set aside. As you glance down through there, like the very first one's the library. You have ad valorem tax that comes in. Turn around and you pay it out to the libraries. The next one is the local alcoholic liquor tax. That's your tax money that comes in for liquor taxes. It can be spent for streets, parks. It's mainly, or not streets, parks, parks and recreation, and then, sorry about that. But all of your special purpose funds, about misspoke there. Somebody's wanting their streets done with the park money now. That ain't true.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. Apologize for that. But all your special purpose funds are for that specific purpose, meaning and the title kind of guides you through that. You glance down through here, you see you've got golf course, aquatic center. We got our sales tax fund down there, those sales taxes that are coming in for the hospital and the school district. Then it goes into the bond and interest fund. Those are monies that you set aside to pay your bonds. Your capital project funds are the next section. Those are those individually specific authorized purchases. And then the last section there, they changed the name here about 5 years ago, and they call it business funds now, because they want users of the financial statement to understand that we treat our utilities in the state of Kansas as a business, meaning you can do anything with the profit once you pay all the bills of that utility. There is a statute actually that says that. But you've got to be careful. We've got to have cash carryover. It's, you have an internal policy for trying goals that you want to reach. It's important that you do reach those goals. A sewer lift station, $65,000 to $100,000, just like that. You've got to have cash to carry over. Any leveraging you do, you go out and get a state revolving loan or a grant, they always require a matching piece of it. And so it's important that you do build those that cash up and carry that over into the new year. Then the last two columns, we add back payables to get to a cash balance. And then at the bottom of page 5 there's a reconciliation of your cash accounts. So actually you've got a little bit of cash on hand, and then your checking accounts, you've got money market accounts, some investments in a trust account for a total of $50,919,000. Questions about that statement? If we turn to page 6, it starts into the footnotes. If you pick up an audit in the state of Kansas, I would say 90 to 95% of them are following the regulatory basis of accounting. And you're going to see this same footnote on footnote number 1, because it talks about what Kansas cash basis is. It talks about how we book receipts, what the different funds are. In your case, it does report out that we do have a couple related municipal entities out there. It continues all the way to page 9. Page 9, footnote number 2, starts getting into information that's specific to you in your city. The first one is compliance with Kansas statutes. Again, we talk about the fact that you were in compliance with the cash basis and budget laws. And then that continues on the next page with your bond covenants. You do have some revenue bonds out there, and they have covenants in them. The very first one we talk about is the covenant that you've got to set money aside, and you're always supposed to have the money set aside into that separate fund the month before a payment's due. As you glance down through there, I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom. You're going to see a total reserve. You were required by those bonds to have $4.5 million set aside, and you'd actually set aside in those accounts $9.7. Majority of the time, you're going to see that bigger balance right at year end, because staff usually does journal entries, to book those transfers either every 6 months or annually. And so they book that to the side and move those monies over ahead of time. But that's your savings account. You could think of it as that's the savings account and the money that's been set aside to make those bond payments in the next year. Plus, there is a few reserves there. Top of the next page talks about the fact that you do have a rate covenant also with your utilities. In fact, you are required to charge an amount to equal at least 125% of profit before debt service, before transfers, and before capital outlay. And as you read down through there, you're going to see that we did make a nice profit in our electric fund last year, in which we met that requirement at 215%. So we were above the requirement on the reserve, or on the rate covenant. Footnote number 3 talks about deposits and investments. You've got some monies out there that are considered investments, a total of $19,899,000. And we do disclose the fair value there, but I do want to point out that in the Kansas cash basis financial statements, they're at cost. So if you tie these numbers back up to the front financial statements, it's going to be that cost column rather than fair value. Cash basis always requires you to look at just what you've put in and cash you take out. Doesn't take into account market change. The next couple sections talk about deposits. You are limited in where and how you can invest your monies as a city. And we talk about the fact that all of your monies at year end were considered secured, meaning there's a credit risk if a bank would fail, are you going to get your monies back? And it actually is a Kansas statute that banks do that for you. And at year end, you actually were secured. And actually, we're required to test that a couple times during the year to make sure you were in compliance. And every time that we tested it, you were in compliance and were fully secured with your funds. Footnote number 4 on page 13, that information gets kind of small there because there's a lot of information there. That's all the long-term debt of the city. Breaks it down by general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, revolving loans, and then capital leases. You can see there we started the year out with $78 million of long-term debt. We actually refunded those 2015 bonds, so it looks like there's an addition of $12 million. That addition is really just refinancing one of the priors, but it is a new bond, so it shows up in the additions column. Paid that down by the 15 for a total of $74 million at the end. So overall, you can see we paid our long-term debt down by, almost $4 million, $3.5 million. And then the last column is the interest that we paid during this last year on those bonds. The next page actually shows you the payout of all of that long-term debt. And you're going to see it's in the next 5 years. Then it goes in 5-year chunks after that, because most of your city planning's done in 5-year phases. Most of your projections, any of your strategic planning. You also can see that when you look at the total principal and interest, which I'm just looking at the total at the bottom of each of the different pages there, you can see you've set your principal and interest up to be pretty consistent there, about $5 to $6 million a year of interest and principal. Most of the time your bond attorneys help you level those payments and keep them to a consistent level to make it easier. Footnote number 16 on page 5, footnote number 5 on page 16 is capital leases. They were on that prior page. This is just a different format that is required to be presented. Footnote number 6 at the bottom of the page, you do rent some various items. Last year you paid $4,000 in rent, and you've made a commitment into the future for $3,162. Industrial revenue bonds, it's just a disclosure of the industrial revenue bonds that are out there. $4.5 million. There was 2 of them left at year end. The year before, I believe you had 4 of them. 2 of them paid off in 2018. There was 2 of them left. Footnote number 8 there on the bottom of page 17 is more information about your CAPERS and KP&F system. The fact that you do participate. In the 3rd paragraph, it talks about how much you contributed into that system in the last year. And then the very last paragraph there, that number that's in there is your portion of the state's shortfall. That $4.2 million is CAPERS and $4.8 million for KP&F. You know, the state doesn't have enough money in their pension to cover everybody that retired. If everybody retired tomorrow and they quit putting money in, they would be short. Or if they gave it back to you and told you were going to administer it from this point on, that's how much you would be short and have enough cash to pay all your retirees. If you were issuing GAAP financial statements, just so this is one of those other differences between GAAP and KMAG, is GAAP, that would actually show up as a liability, as an obligation. You know, we talk about your unencumbered cash balance, that shows up as a liability for the city. With KMAG, since it's cash basis including encumbrances, that isn't considered an encumbrance of the city, it's just a disclosure that that amount is out there. Like most, I don't think the state of Kansas is going to ever say you owe that $4.2 million. I hope they continue the CAPERS system and the KP&F system, but we are required to disclose that now because in GAAP, it would be your liability. Top of the next page continues on with long-term obligations, in which we talk about your sick leave and vacation time. Other post-employment benefits. That's one of those dollars, this compensated absence number, that unfunded liability for vacation of $854,000. That doesn't show up in the front financial statements as an obligation because that's not an encumbrance that we've signed. That would be time that our employees have earned but not yet got paid for. In the state of Kansas, we recognize that expense as the employee takes the vacation. If you were doing GAAP financial statements, again, that would be one of those liabilities that shows up in the front financial statements against that fund balance. Capital projects at the top of page 10. As you can see there, we list out all the different capital projects, the amount authorized, and how much you've spent through 12/31. And we put this footnote disclosure in there to show that you are in compliance with that public approval process, meaning you've authorized a certain amount and here's how much you've spent. We also have a few of them that were completed during the year, but we are showing that you were under the authorized amount on the majority of them. Actually, there's none of them that are over budget or over the authorized amount. And then you had the bottom three that actually are ongoing into 2019. Footnote number 11, you do have some economic development loans with the local businesses. There's a disclosure of those loans, the three different types that you have. Footnote number 12 talks about economic dependency. We disclose that there because you are collecting 61% of your electric revenues from one customer. So we make that disclosure there because if that one customer closed or left town, that would be a major hit. So we could disclose that percentage there so you would know. Risk management at the bottom of that page is how do you handle risk. Most cities that I deal with do that through the purchase of insurance policies rather than self-insurance. You have a health insurance fund, though, that you are partially self-insured. Continues on the next page in which you participate also in the Kansas pool. Then we've got contingencies and commitments. You've got a couple commitments into the future there that prior commissions or you have approved. Like we talk about the fact that you have the Grand River Dam Authority purchase of electrical services. That agreement goes clear out to 2042. Interfund transfers there, if you notice, all of them have a statutory number beside them. If any of them were missing that number, it would be a violation of Kansas statute. As you glance down through there, all transfers have that number beside them, and so all transfers were legal and had a statutory authority to do so. And then subsequent events, footnote number 16, if there were any major issues after year end, we'd be required to disclose it, such as you decided to sell your electrical system or something, we would have to put that there. You don't have any of those type of material events.
Back to number 15.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is over my head, okay? But do you check each one of those to see if they're correct?
Yes, we make sure that they are legal transfers that there's a statute that allows you to transfer those monies, such as the sales tax. You collect money, you put it into the general fund, and then you take and transfer that sales tax out into the other funds. There's a specific statute out there that gives you the authority to make those transfers. Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
The rest of this will go pretty quick. Page 22 is prepared to show users at a glance that you're in compliance with the cash basis laws. Or no, this would be the budget laws. Very last column. Unfortunately, negative is good because that means you're under budget. But as you glance down through there, if any of those were positive, as you can see, all of them are under budget because all of them are negative.
Okay, where are we at?
On page 22.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the very last column there, the variance over and under. It's a summary by fund of your published budget. So you published in the paper that you were going to spend in your general fund $13,129,000. We had some budget credits or reimbursed expense of $19,000. So you actually had a budget for comparison of $13,149,000. We actually only spent $11,614,000. So you were actually under the general fund budget by $1,534,000. So a positive. We were under budget. Public always likes to see that. We didn't spend everything that they authorized. As you glance down through there, you're going to see that all the funds were under budget. So that public approval piece. The rest of the booklet is the by fund information. This is the same format that is printed on the state. You know, when Stephanie brings you the budget coming up, it'll be on a state form. This follows that form. The only thing we do is we throw a prior year column in there so you can see the prior year comparison. Like the very top number is ad valorem property taxes on page 23. Prior year we collected $1,872,000. In 2018 we collected $1,777,000, but we had actually levied $2,270,000. So that $493 would be delinquent taxpayers. But I think everybody's aware that we know what a big chunk of that $493,000 is. But the other piece of that would be then your delinquent taxpayers. The hope is it comes in on the next line down. Next line down is delinquent taxes. That $154,000 that shows up on line 2 there for the current year, that's the people that didn't pay their taxes in 2017 but made their payment in 2018, and which we then was transferred over to us. So I'm not going to sit and go fund by fund. There's a lot of good information in there. You get home tonight and you're using this little booklet to go to sleep, you know, because you come across the questions. I'm sure Stephanie knows where every number in here came from because she did a very good job. In fact, we did not have any audit adjustments this year, which means the numbers that she presented before to you are the exact same as how they show up in the book. So there really shouldn't be any surprises as you're looking through the book because it is the same thing that you've actually already seen and approved. There's another letter that's in there. Let's talk about it real fast. This letter is in management and the board and the commission's packets only. This is what they refer to as a letter to those charged with governance. And in the past, we would orally came and talk to you if we had any problems encountered or any difficulties or had to consult some outside accountants because you're doing something wacky with your books. In this case, you're going to read through this letter. It is a boilerplate letter. We did not have any of those type of situations that arose, but we are required to give it to you in writing now to tell you we did not have any disagreements with management. We didn't have to consult any outside accountants. I'm making light of it, but it is important that you do read through those couple pages because it's got some good information in there. Then the last couple pages of that is what we call the management representation letter, which in the past it was signed between the auditor and management. It's now required that we give full disclosure so that you can see what representations have been made by management. I usually call it the reminder letter because as management talks through it or reads through it, they should have talked to me about everything that's in that letter. There's a thing in there about lawsuits. There's a thing in there about conflicts of interest. There's a thing in there about laws and regulations, the IRS, the DOL, all those different types of things. It is important, again, that you read through it and know what representations have been made, but they have talked to me about everything, and it is a boilerplate letter because we didn't have any of those type of situations that arose that needed to be disclosed in there. We are aware of all situations that are going on. We feel like.
Okay. And what was
Yes,
your
sir.
name?
Neil Phillips.
Okay, it's the first one here. Well, who's Jared?
He's
he
another. He's another partner in the firm. Nope, Jared, Phil Jared. We have 3 partners in our firm. It's Jared, Gilmore, and Phillips. Phil Jared, I believe he's presented in the past here before. And then Jolene Gilmore, she's a partner. She's also in the Chanute office. Actually, she's in the Chanute office in Neodesha. Phil is in Chanute and Iola. And then I am only in Chanute office, but I do all the auditing. We do 32 city audits now, and we do a lot of school districts, colleges. In fact, for the city of Coffeyville, in the city of Coffeyville, we do the rec commission, we do the school district, we do the college, we do the city, and then we do actually a couple nonprofits here also, like the Community Area Foundation. We do that audit also. But we're very heavy in audits, and I do that full time.
So, if you don't mind me asking, what did it cost to do this audit?
I believe.
If you don't mind me focusing that on you, I mean.
I'm going to throw a number out that I can't remember exact. It's around $12,000 or $14,000. We bid that every 3 years for you guys. We've been your auditor for quite a few years, but we've won the low price bid each of those times. I believe that you do it every 3. Sometimes I think it's been 4, but every 3 to 4 years we do bid the process.
Well, it seemed like a pretty good value. I mean, just what little I know about audits, but I mean, I'll just throw that out there, what little I know about it. So we sure appreciate it.
thank you.
I don't
A lot
have
of
any
information.
more questions, or sure appreciate you coming down, and
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
And,
you very much. Very informative.
I'm sure somebody might have a question or two later, but
Yep, you can email Stephanie or I at any time. Like I said, I think she knows where every number in here came from.
thank you,
Very good.
Mr. Phillips, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Phillips. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything while he's here that,
So I
Stephanie,
did have one
we wanna-
question. Do we need to sign these?
Yeah,
That has-
I'm still missing that letter.
Does
Only-
all the commissioners or just,
No, it'll just be
okay,
the mayor.
okay.
I got one more question I forgot I was gonna ask you.
No problem, sir.
Now, this business of the city is how many million,
You're 50 million in cash,
okay?
and total revenues were $110 million.
Okay,
Almost 110, 465.
Page 4, I think is what
Okay.
it is.
now,
Yep,
if
page
you
4
were
and
doing
5.
that audit for a business that was that size, would it be the same price?
No, because you'd be following GAAP. If we did a GAAP audit, you're probably talking 5 to 6 to 7 times the cost for a GAAP audit. If we do a GAAP audit, you would have to include some actuarials that we would have to hire. We would actually have to get an engineer involved because like your streets and your roads get depreciated out once the engineer says they're at a certain point in a degradation curve. You have to have an actuarial involved because in the state of Kansas, we allow retirees to stay on until they reach 65. It's a state law that you allow your retirees to stay on your health insurance. That is takes an actuarial study to come up with a projected liability of how much our insurance is going to cost. There's all the different factors of a GAAP audit that are going to cost a whole heck of a lot
I
more.
wondered about that, thank you.
That's
Do we
what
have
the nice thing about the Kansas cash basis is.
Okay, good to know, I learned something there. City manager, do we have any questions for him, what that needs to be discussed here, or Stephanie, or, I take it no, but I'm just asking.
Not at this time.
Okay,
Staff's really good about contacting me throughout the year if they have questions and.
okay.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you again.
All right.
Safe travels home.
Thanks.
City managers report.
Mayor, Commissioners, just a reminder that 4th of July will be between our meeting and the next meeting. And staff is looking forward to the events after 4th of July. We're trying to catch up on mowing. Rain has slowed down a little, and it'll be a never-ending battle. The other this morning, I explained on the radio to give a peace of mind to citizens a little about the levy and what we're doing. We, social media, Cindy puts out there information. I've had comments from all over the city that how they appreciate that. Anytime it rains, of course, they learn to look north and what it will do to the reservoirs that are holding water. But they do appreciate everything that she does to keep them informed, and we will stay on top of that. As you know, we're dropping again.
Yep.
And we just watch for the next rain. But staff has been doing a lot of things above and beyond to get through the summer with the conditions being that they are. I've been told that the amount of rain is not normal. We've gotten a little more, but they are truly trying to stay on top of it. So I want to thank them for all they do, and hopefully it's a reflection on you all that they're trying to make the city great.
Fantastic.
Questions? Please feel free to ask.
Thank you. This time we'll take comments from the public. The public is free to comment on items not listed on the agenda. Please address comments to the commission as a body and be mindful of others who may also wish to speak by limiting your comments to 3 minutes. We're going to make a really quick meeting then. Okay, we'll take comments from the commissioners and staff.
Well,
Go ahead.
I've only got one, just wanted to introduce my grandson, Marco Despotovic from Tulsa, my daughter's son, and my son-in-law too, of course. But anyway, this is his first meeting, and anyway, wanted to introduce him. Ladies here to see what's going on here.
Hi, Marco.
Welcome.
Kind of tough to sit through these meetings sometimes, isn't it? I've been watching you. You're a very well-behaved young man.
Yes, you are.
Oh, well, I've been trying not to, so don't worry about it. It's all right. So you're a very well-behaved young man. I'm thinking you probably take after your grandpa.
On the other side.
It's one.
That's it on the other side. Okay.
Good job, young man.
Yes. Thank you for coming tonight. At this time, we'll move to executive session.
Mayor and Commissioners, I have a couple things.
Sorry. Yes.
Thursday night is Throwback Thursday at the Aquatic Center. I hope all of you will at least come out for a little bit. It's a great event, tying it in with the 150th anniversary, so we'll have some additional things than the normal. And then
What time?
it is 5:30 to 8. All admissions are $1. You can come out and eat $1 hot dogs and $1 root beer floats. You can't beat it. Have vintage vehicles that will be in, and they'll be parked right up at poolside. We'll have cornhole and badminton, and it'll just be a fun evening. Park
Are you
cleanup
going?
is. Yes, I've got my camera ready.
Pictures,
I'm
you know
ready.
that?
Yes.
Bring our swimming suits or what?
And music from the 50s and 60s. That's the best part. Park cleanup is Saturday, June the 29th at 9 o'clock. And the Park Advisory Board is asking everyone to just meet out here in the north parking lot. And then they will let them know about the various activities and projects at the different parks. Walter Johnson, North Park, Harmon Park, and I think there'll be some at Feaster. So there's a lot of projects that the Park Advisory Board has been working on.
Will you give me that meeting time again?
9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
9 o'clock Saturday morning. Bring your gloves, your old clothes.
Very good.
This parking lot right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
And the park benches, they're going to work on sealing the park benches and the picnic tables. And the public service has been moving them from the other parks and putting them in a central location. We had some calls and contacts about where have our park benches and our picnic tables gone. So they'll get repaired, sealed, power washed, repaired, and sealed, and then they'll all be delivered back to the various parks.
Good.
Very
That's
good.
great.
Yeah, it is great.
Very good.
I just have one thing.
Okay.
You brought up 4th of July, and I had to look. We have one more meeting before the summer celebration, but that only leaves us 4 days. So I'm going to say something now. Put it on your calendars, July 13th, Saturday. There's lots of talk, but Mike and Andy and Gail, they all do so much work for this. But they have a whole list of activities, one of the best fireworks shows I've ever seen. So I hope there's just as much or better of a turnout as we had last year. So that's it.
Good. Glad you remembered that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so at this time, we'll move to executive session. It's attorney-client privilege to discuss contractual issues. So we'll move to recess to executive session for the discussion of contractual issues pursuant to the attorney-client relationship exception to include Mark Hall, Mike Shook, and Stephanie Richardson, and to reconvene in the commission room at 45 minutes, so 8 o'clock.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
The motion was made by Mayor Bauer and seconded by Commissioner Williams to recess to executive session for discussion of contractual issues pursuant to the attorney-client relationship exception to include Mark Hall, Mike Shook, Stephanie Richardson, to reconvene on or before 8 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much for coming tonight.